First strike. The message played on every screen across Earth's colonies. 6 human diplomats, kneeling before the Galactic Council's golden throne, their faces bloody but defiant. The Council Arbiter, a towering figure with crystalline skin, raised his ceremonial staff. "Let this serve as a lesson," his translator echoed, "to all who would challenge Council supremacy." The executions were broadcast live. Commander Isabella Reyes stood in the Strategic Command Center beneath Mount Cheyenne, her knuckles white against the tactical display's edge. Around her, the usually bustling command center had fallen silent, hundreds of officers and analysts watching in horror as humanity's first diplomatic mission to the Council ended in calculated murder. "They thought this would break us," Reyes whispered, her voice carrying in the dead silence. "They thought this would make us submit." She straightened, turning to face the assembled command staff. "They don't understand humans at all." Admiral Harrison, his weathered face grave, nodded slowly. "Authorization just came through from the Security Council. Operation Prometheus is green-lit." He looked around the room. "May God have mercy on them, because we won't." For 20 years, humanity had prepared in secret. While presenting a facade of a struggling young spacefaring race, Earth's military had been building, training, and developing technologies that even the Council's most advanced species would find shocking. The Prometheus Protocol wasn't just a contingency plan. It was humanity's insurance policy against extinction. Reyes moved quickly through the Cheyenne Mountain hangar, her combat suit's boots clicking against the metal deck. Her team, 30 of the most lethal special operators humanity had ever produced, stood ready beside their stealth dropship, the Night Wraith. Each soldier wore next-generation combat suits that could absorb energy weapons and enhance strength tenfold. They carried weapons specifically designed to exploit weaknesses in Council shield technology. "Listen up," Reyes called out, her dark eyes scanning her team. "Council Outpost Sigma-7 is our target. It's their primary military installation in the Orion Arm, coordinating their patrol fleets and housing their regional command structure." She activated a holographic display showing the station's schematics. "They think it's impregnable. We're going to prove them wrong." Lieutenant James Walsh, her second-in-command, stepped forward. "What about civilian personnel, Commander?" The Council evacuated all non-military personnel after the executions. "They're expecting retaliation, just not like this, and not so soon." Reyes's lips curved in a grim smile. "They think we need weeks to mobilize our primitive fleet." The Night Wraith slipped through space like a shadow, its quantum stealth systems making it virtually undetectable. The technology had been developed in absolute secrecy, tested in the dark spaces between stars where even the Council's eyes couldn't reach. As they approached Sigma-7, Reyes watched the massive station grow larger in their viewport. Its spiral arms stretched out like a deadly flower, bristling with weapon emplacements and sensor arrays. "Approaching insertion point," the pilot announced. "No indication they've detected us." Reyes checked her weapon one last time, a marvel of human engineering that could switch between conventional rounds and plasma bolts. "Remember your training. The Council's forces have never faced anything like us. They rely on their energy shields and think themselves invulnerable. Let's show them how wrong they are." The Night Wraith positioned itself above one of the station's maintenance airlocks. Special Forces operators in teams of 3 began their silent approach, using magnetic grapples to secure themselves to the station's hull. Reyes led the first team, her helmet's display showing the station's internal layout overlaid on the metal hull beneath her feet. Walsh's voice came through her comm. "Breaching charges set, Commander. Ready on your mark." Reyes took a deep breath. In her mind, she saw the diplomats again. Brave men and women who tried to make peace with an empire that only understood force. "For Earth," she whispered, then louder. "Execute." Multiple breaching charges detonated simultaneously across the station's surface, punching through halls and shields alike. The Special Forces teams poured in through the gaps like avenging angels, their weapons dealing death with surgical precision. Council security forces, caught completely off guard, fell before they could even raise the alarm. The station's internal defenses activated, automated turrets and security barriers. But the human forces had trained for this. EMP grenades disabled electronic systems, while specialized tech warfare suites hijacked and reversed the station's own security measures. Rise led her team toward the command center, encountering increasingly desperate resistance. Council warriors of various species fought with everything they had, but their tactics were predictable, their technology suddenly inadequate against humanity's carefully planned assault. In the station's main security hub, a Cranaxian warrior, 3 meters of armored carapace and lethal appendages, charged at Rise with a roar. She met its charge with enhanced strength, her combat suit's servos whining as she grappled with the alien. "You should have left us alone," she growled, before driving a plasma blade through a gap in its armor. The command center fell within 20 minutes of the initial breach. Rise stood before the station's commanding officer, a High Council member of the Viridian species. The alien's color-shifting skin pulsed with patterns of fear and disbelief. "Impossible," it said through its translator. "You are primitives. You cannot." "We are humanity," Rise interrupted, her voice cold. "And you just learned your first lesson about us. Never mistake our diplomacy for weakness." She nodded to Walsh, who began uploading a virus into the station's communications array. "This message will reach every council world and outpost. You thought killing our diplomats would cow us into submission. Instead, you've awakened something you can't control." The virus activated, and on every screen across the station, across council space, the same message began to play. Footage of human special forces overwhelming the impregnable station, along with a simple text in all known council languages. "You crossed the line. Run." As Rise and her teams withdrew, leaving behind a crippled station and a shattered myth of council invincibility, she knew this was only the beginning. Humanity had prepared for this moment, hidden their strength, and waited patiently. Now, the galaxy would learn why Earth's symbol was a double-edged sword, one edge for peace, the other for those who made peace impossible. The Night Wraith vanished into the darkness of space, carrying with it the first strike in what would become known as humanity's Revelation War. On Earth, the next phase was already beginning, as hidden shipyards activated and sleeping warriors awoke. The Council had wanted to teach humanity a lesson. Instead, they were about to learn one themselves. The Shadow Protocol. The Galactic Council's emergency session dissolved into chaos as the footage from Sigma-7 played for the 100th time. Counselors of 17 species argued and threatened, their translators creating a cacophony of accusations and fear. In the shadows of the Grand Chamber, Captain Marcus Blackwood smiled. The Council had never noticed the human maintenance worker in their midst. They never saw the small devices he planted throughout their supposedly secure chamber over the past 3 months. Now, as they panicked, he gathered intelligence that would prove vital to Earth's next move. Impossible. A Talaxian counselor's crystalline form shimmered with agitation. Their technological level was assessed at grade 3. They shouldn't have quantum stealth, much less energy-penetrating weapons. And Elder Murian, his scaled face grave, raised all 4 hands for silence. "We must face the truth. The humans deceived us. The question is, for how long, and what else are they hiding?" Blackwood touched his collar, activating his subdermal comm. "Control, are you getting this?" "Clear as crystal, Shadow One," came the quiet response. "Finish your shift and exit normally. Phase 2 begins at dawn." Back on Earth, Admiral Harrison stood in a facility that officially didn't exist. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, the Phantom Fleet waited. 50 ships, each more advanced than anything the Council had ever encountered, powered up their systems for the first time in decades. "Status report," Harrison commanded. Colonel Rena Ward, her dark skin illuminated by holographic displays, responded crisply. "All ships reporting ready, Admiral." Quantum drives nominal, stealth systems active. The Council still hasn't detected our subsea launch facilities. And our allies. The Drachnid resistance has confirmed their support. They'll begin disrupting Council communications when we give the signal. The archivists have also made contact. They're prepared to share the Council's defense codes. Harrison nodded slowly. Not every species in Council space agreed with their leader's brutality. Some remembered their own histories of Council pacification. Aboard the stealth destroyer Silent Storm, Captain Blackwood reviewed his mission parameters with his specialized crew. The ship's bridge hummed with quiet efficiency, every officer chosen for their exceptional abilities and psychological resilience. The Council's primary communications hub orbits Centauri Prime, Blackwood explained, highlighting the massive station on the tactical display. It processes and controls all faster-than-light communications in this sector. Our mission is to infiltrate and implement the Shadow Protocol. Lieutenant Kira Santos, his infiltration specialist, studied the station's schematics. Security will be unprecedented after Sigma-7. That's counting on their old systems. Blackwood smiled. What they don't know is that we've had quantum AI processing their encryption for years. Thanks to our friends in the Resistance, we have backdoors they never knew existed. The Silent Storm moved through space like a ghost, its quantum drive leaving no trace in the fabric of space-time. As they approached Centauri Prime, other ships from the Phantom Fleet began their own missions across Council space, each targeting crucial infrastructure that the Council had thought safely hidden. Inside the communications hub, alarms suddenly blared. Security Chief Vaxthal, a veteran of 3 Council wars, stared in disbelief at his monitors. Multiple breaches, but there are no ships in range. Human quantum commandos materialized throughout the station, their phase shift technology allowing them to bypass physical barriers. Council security forces found themselves fighting an enemy that could walk through walls, their weapons seemingly anticipating every Council countermeasure. In the chaos, Blackwood's team moved with precision toward their real target. The station's quantum core contained something far more valuable than communication controls. It held the Council's deep space surveillance network data. They're using old Drachnid technology, Santos observed as they worked. The same kind they used to subjugate the Drachnid homeworld a century ago. Ironic, Blackwood replied, his fingers flying over the alien controls. The Drachnids helped us understand it, adapt it, and improve it. The Council's arrogance made them keep using systems they stole, never imagining their victims would surpass them. The Shadow Protocol activated like a digital virus, spreading through the Council's network. But it didn't destroy. It watched, it listened, and it waited. Humanity now had eyes and ears in every Council system, and they didn't even know it. As his team prepared to withdraw, Blackwood left one final message in the station's core. You thought knowledge was power. You never considered that others might learn faster than you. Back on Earth, Commander Rice reviewed the operation's success with Admiral Harrison. The Council's still reeling from Sigma-7, she reported. They haven't even realized their communications hub was compromised. Harrison's weathered face showed grim satisfaction. And the Resistance. Growing. The Drachnids have begun sharing our improved versions of their old technology with other subjugated species. The Council's grip is weakening system by system. Good. Harrison turned to a star map showing Council space. Because Phase 3 will require widespread chaos, it's time to hit their supply lines. Have you reviewed Admiral Patel's battle plans? Rice nodded, studying the complex web of trade routes and military supply chains that kept the Council's empire functioning. The Council never imagined they'd need to defend their core worlds. They'd pushed all their military might to the edges of their territory. A mistake we're about to make them regret deeply, Harrison said softly. Humanity doesn't just want to bloody their nose, Commander. We're going to dismantle their empire, piece by piece, until they understand one fundamental truth. What's that, sir? That true civilization isn't built on domination. It's built on respect. Harrison's eyes hardened. And if they can't learn that peacefully, we'll teach it to them the hard way. As the silent storm rejoined the Phantom Fleet, Captain Blackwood watched the Council communications hub grow smaller in their wake. The station's personnel still hadn't realized the true extent of what had happened. They were too busy fighting the obvious invasion to notice the subtle one that had already succeeded. The Shadow Protocol was just the beginning. Phase 3 would show the Council that humanity's vengeance wasn't just about military might. It was about dismantling everything they'd built, everything they thought they knew about their place in the galaxy. The war for Earth's dignity had become a revolution for galactic freedom, and the Council's own victims were joining the cause. Breaking the chain, Admiral Kira Patel stood on the bridge of the EFS Hyperion, watching as her fleet materialized from quantum space near the Council's largest supply depot in the Perseus Arm. 30 ships, each a masterpiece of human engineering, dropped their stealth fields simultaneously. The massive supply station, Nexus 12, hung in space before them like a glittering jewel. Battle stations, Patel commanded, her voice steady. Execute Operation Stranglehold. The Council had built their empire on complex supply chains, moving resources and materials across thousands of light years. They never expected anyone could threaten their core logistics network. They were wrong. Multiple Council vessels detected, her tactical officer reported. They're scrambling a response fleet. Patel smiled thinly. Right on schedule. Lieutenant Hassan, signal our allies. Suddenly, from the other side of Nexus 12, a fleet of Drachnid warships dropped out of hyperspace. Their ships, once considered obsolete by Council standards, now bristled with hybridized human Drachnid technology. The Council forces found themselves caught in a perfect crossfire. To all Council vessels, Patel broadcast on open channels. You're outnumbered and outgunned. Stand down, and you'll be treated with the dignity your leaders never showed us. Some ships fought. Others, seeing the overwhelming force arrayed against them, surrendered. The battle for Nexus 12 was over in less than an hour. Aboard the station, Council bureaucrats watched in horror as joint human Drachnid boarding teams secured critical areas. Senior Administrator Vexlon, a high-ranking Talaxian, found himself face-to-face with Admiral Patel herself. "Do you understand what you're doing?" he demanded. "This station supplies food and medical supplies to 12 Council systems." "We know exactly what we're doing," Patel replied calmly. "Those supplies will still reach their destination, but now they'll come with a message. The Council doesn't own you anymore." Across Council space, similar scenes played out. The Phantom Fleet, coordinating with resistance forces from a dozen species, struck supply lines with surgical precision. But unlike the Council's brutal tactics, humanity's attacks came with an offer: freedom in exchange for cooperation. On the occupied Drachnid homeworld of Krell 4, centuries of resistance suddenly turned to open rebellion. Council forces found their weapons mysteriously malfunctioning, their communications scrambled. Human stealth ships delivered advanced weapons to the rebels, while Council supply ships arrived empty, their cargo mysteriously lost in transit. Commander Reyes, coordinating with resistance leaders, established a hidden base in the crystalline caves beneath Kralthor's surface. "The Council's losing control," she reported to Earth. "Not just here, everywhere. Species they've dominated for centuries are rising up." The Council's response was predictably harsh. They sent their mighty First Fleet to crush the Drachnid rebellion. But when the fleet arrived, they found something unexpected. Nothing. The rebels, the humans, the supplies, all had vanished into an underground network that spanned the planet. "They still don't understand," Reyes told her Drachnid allies. "They think territory is about controlling space. They never learned it's about the hearts and minds of people." In the following weeks, the Council's empire began to unravel. Supplies meant for their military were rerouted to resistance movements. Council ships found themselves unable to trust their own navigation data. The Shadow Protocol, now fully activated, turned their own network against them. Captain Blackwood, monitoring Council communications from the silent storm, reported increasing panic among Council leadership. "They're beginning to turn on each other," he informed Admiral Harrison. "Each species is blaming the others for the security breaches." Harrison nodded grimly. "And our infiltration of their capital. Proceeding as planned. The Council's obsession with their own superiority makes them blind to the obvious. They're servants, they're maintenance workers, they're lesser species. We have eyes and ears everywhere." But the true masterstroke came from an unexpected quarter. The archivists, an ancient species that maintained the Council's historical records, chose this moment to release long-buried truths. Evidence of Council atrocities, secret deals, and countless betrayals. Species that had been loyal for centuries suddenly questioned everything they'd been told. Admiral Patel, overseeing the conversion of Nexus 12 into a humanitarian distribution center, received word of another Council supply fleet's surrender. This one hadn't even fired a shot. Their own crew had mutinied after learning the truth about their leaders. "The chain is breaking," she told her staff. "But remember our orders. We show mercy to those who surrender. We help those in need. The galaxy needs to see that there's a better way than the Council's brutality." As Phase 3 reached its climax, the Council found itself facing a stark reality. Their empire wasn't falling to human military might alone, but to something far more powerful, the hope of freedom. Every liberated world, every successful rebellion, every act of mercy by human forces showed the galaxy a different path. In the Council's Grand Chamber, now half empty as representatives of rebellious worlds withdrew, the remaining leaders faced a terrible choice: adapt or fall. But even as they debated, human intelligence suggested they were planning one final desperate gambit. Commander Reyes, reviewing the intelligence with her team, recognized the pattern. "They're pulling forces back to their military headquarters on Apex Prime," she reported. "Everything they have left: ships, weapons, troops. A last stand." Lieutenant Walsh asked. "No," Reyes replied grimly. "Something worse. Our spies report they're accessing weapons vaults that have been sealed for millennia. The Council would rather burn the galaxy than admit they're wrong." The stage was set for humanity's most daring operation yet, a direct assault on the heart of Council military power. But first, they needed to discover what ancient horrors the Council was preparing to unleash. The war was entering its final phase, and the stakes had never been higher. The Council's true nature, and humanity's ultimate test, waited on Apex Prime. The heart of darkness. The facility beneath Apex Prime stretched for kilometers underground, a labyrinth of ancient corridors and sealed vaults. Commander Reyes and Captain Blackwood led their joint team through the darkness, their advanced sensors penetrating walls that had stood untouched for thousands of years. According to the archivist's data, Blackwood whispered, "This facility predates the Council itself. Whatever's down here, they found it. They didn't build it." Their team moved silently through the complex, their stealth suits adapting to avoid detection. Council forces above were still unaware of the infiltration, too busy preparing their last resort weapons for deployment. Lieutenant Walsh's sensor suddenly pinged. "Commander, I'm picking up energy readings unlike anything we've seen. It's alive, somehow." Reyes felt a chill despite her suit's environmental controls. The deeper they went, the more ancient and alien their surroundings became. The walls themselves seemed to pulse with a faint, sickly light. Team 2 reporting. Santos' voice crackled through their comms. "We found something. Sending visuals now." The feed showed a massive chamber filled with suspended animation pods. Inside each pod was a creature that defied description. Biological and mechanical components merged in ways that shouldn't be possible. "Now we know why the Council feared us so much," Blackwood said grimly. "They found these things, learned to control them. They've been using the threat of releasing them to keep their empire in line for centuries." "Biomechanical weapons," Reyes agreed. "But why were they so specifically afraid of humans?" The answer came as they reached the facility's central chamber. Holographic displays activated automatically, showing historical records that the Council had kept hidden from their own archivists. By the stars, Walsh breathed. These creatures, they were created to fight humans. Not us, but the first humans. The ones who came before. The records told a story that rewrote galactic history. Humanity hadn't just recently emerged into space. They were returning, hundreds of thousands of years ago. An advanced human civilization had spanned the galaxy. The creatures in the pods had been created by an enemy long forgotten, designed specifically to target human biology. That ancient war had ended in mutual destruction. Humanity had been reduced to starting over on Earth, while their enemies had vanished entirely. The Council had discovered these weapons and built their empire on the threat of using them. The Council found evidence of human DNA spreading through the galaxy, Blackwood realized. They knew we were descendants of that ancient civilization. They weren't afraid of our current technology. They were afraid we'd remember who we used to be. Commander, Santos called urgently. The Council's activating the stasis pods. They're really going to do it. They're going to release these things rather than lose control. Rise made a snap decision. All teams, fall back to minimum safe distance. Blackwood, upload everything we found to Fleet Command. Walsh, arm the quantum charges. Commander, Walsh questioned. Those charges will collapse half the continent. Better than letting these weapons loose on the galaxy. Rides opened a channel to Admiral Harrison. Sir, requesting emergency authorization for Protocol Omega. Harrison's response was immediate. Granted, Commander. But first, broadcast everything you found on all frequencies. The galaxy needs to know what the Council was willing to do. As they retreated, Rise activated the broadcast. Across Council space, beings of all species watched in horror as the truth was revealed. The Council hadn't been protecting civilization. They had been holding it hostage with weapons they barely understood. The quantum charges detonated just as the first stasis pods began to open. The explosion was precisely calculated, massive enough to destroy the facility and its weapons, but contained enough to minimize civilian casualties. Above ground, Council forces preparing for their final battle found themselves facing not just human armies, but the combined forces of every species they had ever oppressed. The revelation of their true nature had shattered whatever loyalty remained. In the Council's chambers, the few remaining leaders faced the inevitable. Grand Arbiter Vexilon, his crystalline form dulled with age and defeat, activated the emergency surrender protocols. As human forces secured the Council headquarters, he faced Admiral Harrison with quiet resignation. You could have used those weapons yourselves, he said, taken control of everything. Harrison's response was cold. That's the difference between us. You see power as a means to control others. We see it as a responsibility to protect them. The war was effectively over, but humanity's greatest challenge was just beginning. They had freed the galaxy from the Council's grip, but now they had to help build something better in its place. And deep in space, ancient machines stirred. The quantum detonation had sent out a signal, one that had been waiting to be heard for thousands of years. Humanity had found its past, but their future held challenges their ancestors had never overcome. Rise, watching the sunset on Apex Prime, felt a deeper purpose emerging. We didn't just win a war, she told Blackwood. We discovered who we really are. Now we have to decide who we want to become. The heart of darkness had revealed not just the Council's true nature, but humanity's hidden legacy. As the galaxy entered a new age, the question remained, would humanity learn from its ancient mistakes, or were they doomed to repeat them? Echoes of victory. 3 months after the fall of Apex Prime, Earth's victory should have felt complete. Instead, Admiral Harrison stood before the newly formed Galactic Assembly, his expression grave as he delivered news that would reshape their understanding of the future. The quantum signal from Apex Prime awakened something, he announced to representatives of 30 formerly subjugated species. Our deep space arrays are detecting movement at the edges of known space. Whatever destroyed our ancestors, they're coming back. Commander Reyes, now leading the Joint Defense Force, brought up a holographic display showing mysterious objects moving through the void between galaxies. The ancient enemy never died. They were waiting, watching, ensuring their weapons had finished their work. The assembly chamber erupted in concerned murmurs. Captain Blackwood, stationed at the back, watched various species' reactions. The Drachnids stood proud, ready to fight. The Talaxians shimmered with anxiety. The archivists recorded everything, determined not to let history repeat itself. But we have something our ancestors didn't. Admiral Patel stepped forward. Unity. The Council kept us divided, weak. Now we stand together, combining our technologies, our knowledge, our strength. The next weeks saw the greatest cooperative effort in galactic history. Drachnid shipyards, now freed from Council control, merged their ancient engineering with human quantum technology. Talaxian crystal tech enhanced communications across vast distances. The archivists' historical knowledge filled gaps in understanding the ancient threat. On Earth, in a facility deeper than even the Phantom Fleet's base, Commander Reyes and her team studied the recovered data from Apex Prime. Lieutenant Walsh had made a breakthrough. The biomechanical weapons weren't just designed to target humans, he explained. They were meant to prepare worlds for harvesting. The ancient enemy doesn't just want to destroy us. They want our worlds, our resources, everything. Admiral Harrison convened an emergency meeting with Earth's leadership and key alien allies. We have months, maybe weeks, he reported, but we have advantages they won't expect. They'll be looking for scattered, primitive survivors of their weapons. Instead, they'll find a unified galaxy ready to fight. The Assembly authorized the creation of the Combined Defense Fleet, the largest military force ever assembled. Ships of all species, enhanced with hybrid technology, gathered at strategic points throughout the galaxy. Human stealth technology was freely shared, transformed by each species' unique innovations. Captain Blackwood, commanding the advanced scout ship Event Horizon, led the first contact with the ancient enemy's vanguard. What they found chilled them to the bone. They're not just machines, he reported back. They're twisted reflections of every species they've consumed. Billions of years of conquered civilizations, transformed into weapons. But humanity had learned from both victory and defeat. The mercy they'd shown their former Council enemies now paid dividends in loyalty and trust. The strategic genius that had dismantled the Council's empire now turned to defending all sentient life. Commander Reyes, standing on the bridge of the flagship Unity, watched as the combined fleet took formation. Human quantum drives synchronized with Drachnid power cores. Talaxian crystal shields merged with modified Council technology. Every species contributed their strengths. They thought their weapons would keep us divided forever, she told her mixed species crew. Instead, they brought us together. Today, we're not fighting for dominance or control. We're fighting for the right of all species to exist freely. The first battle occurred near the former Council core worlds. The ancient enemy, believing they would find easy prey, instead met the full force of a unified galaxy. Their biological weapons, designed for ancient humans, proved ineffective against humanity's evolved defenses. Their technological superiority, assumed after eons of conquest, was matched by the combined innovations of dozens of species working together. Admiral Harrison, coordinating the defense from Earth, watched as centuries of Council oppression transformed into an advantage. Every species had developed unique ways to survive, to resist, to endure. Together, they were stronger than any single civilization could be. The war would be long and costly, but its outcome was no longer in doubt. Humanity had not only reclaimed its ancient legacy, it had improved upon it. Where their ancestors had fought alone, they had built alliances. Where the Council had ruled through fear, Earth led through respect and cooperation. In the end, the ancient enemy's greatest weapon had become their undoing. The biomechanical horrors meant to divide and conquer had instead united the galaxy. The Council's fear and control had forged species that were resilient, adaptable, and now unshackably allied. Commander Reyes, watching Earth's sun rise from orbital command, reflected on their journey. They had begun seeking vengeance for murdered diplomats, only to find a deeper purpose. Humanity had not just defeated an empire. They had helped birth a community of equals, ready to face any threat together. The last transmission from the retreating enemy forces was intercepted and decoded. It contained just 3 words: "They have evolved." In the assembly chamber, now a true forum of equals, Admiral Harrison addressed the gathered representatives one final time. "Our ancestors fought alone and fell. The Council ruled through division and fell. But we, all of us together, we will stand, not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as guardians of something precious, the right of all beings to live free and grow strong together." The galaxy entered a new age, not of Council dominance or human supremacy, but of true cooperation. The ancient enemy would return, but they would find something unprecedented. A civilization that had turned diversity into strength, past hatreds into shared wisdom, and the echoes of victory into a symphony of unity. Earth's message had evolved from "run while you can" to something far more powerful. "Stand with us, and together we'll build something that can never be broken." The end.